Oh, welcome, members of Conscious, and this is how Google really works. This is going to be a comprehensive video on the inner workings of Google based on the leaks that were recently revealed. This essentially might be one of the most important videos I ever make on the topic, and I'm actually not expecting you to go through all of it at once because it's going to be a really long and comprehensive one. It's a deep dive for SEO professionals, for people to have websites that want to, that have even been impacted recently, or you want to grow them to new heights. This is probably not going to be super popular in terms of like view count in terms of videos, because this is really a more an educational and how to implement these strategies rather than a clickbait title. So if you're watching this, I recommend you bookmark it if you want to come back and watch it in sections. That's essentially the way this is going to be meant to be consumed. If you find it's useful, then share it with other people. But once again, I'm making this as essentially the best understanding that we have of how Google really works based on these new leaks. So here's why I'm saying that. A lot of people, and I've seen this all over the place, underestimate the impact of this Google leak. Because as someone that's been doing and researching SEO for over 15 years, it doesn't take much to either confirm, debunk, or change directions entirely of a theory or our understanding of how Google really works. So we were just missing a few minor pieces that this leak revealed in order to unlock an entirely new understanding and approach to SEO. So this is why for some people, it just seems like the same thing as always. But for me and for a few others, this unlocks a whole new approach and tweaks to how we do things online. And so I'm going to share everything with you. And I believe that the first movers to take advantage of this new information are the ones that are likely to reap all the rewards. So by the way, I do want to make a full disclaimer that this is my understanding, and whatever you do with your own website is at your own risk. So with that out of the way, let's dive into it. So how does this leak lead to better Google rankings? Well, let me explain what the leak is first, because I've seen some confusion about this as well. And essentially, leak is a documentation of Google's APIs that it used to build its algorithms. So these are the building blocks of a search engine. So for instance, if you're, a Google engineer, you're like, oh, I want to build a new algorithm for Google search, and I want to show search snippets with a website of PR5 that have more than 20,000 views and a spam score of 10 or lower. You could take all these things from the API and kind of combine it, and then you'll be able to get a result. So this essentially is how, what we're looking at in the documentation. So special thanks to Rand Fishkin and Mike King for alerting the SEO community of this leak. Now, let me kind of dive into why this is important and how we could use it. So think of it as finding all the fresh ingredients in a kitchen. So you walk into a kitchen and you see a whole bunch of things such as like pancake mix, eggs, blueberries, bananas, and strawberries. And because you've been using it for a while, it's a pancake restaurant. Well, what are they making, right? So obviously, these are the ingredients to make pancakes, right? So that's very simple and straightforward. Then you could probably deduce what kind of toppings are likely to be on these pancakes. Well, it doesn't explicitly tell you here in the algorithm of pancake making, but because you see all this here, you could probably say blueberries, bananas, and strawberries are very, 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 very likely to be toppings on these pancakes. And this is essentially how the API is working, right? So this is how it gives us hints where we know what they're doing. We have all the ingredients now, and now we can make assumptions that, okay, well, because they have this algorithm running here, we see all the ingredients and descriptions of these ingredients, we could finally make these conclusions or confirmations of what we're doing is right, wrong, what we need to tweak, and if everything. So the other thing that I do want to mention with this whole warehouse is that it is apparently really well maintained. And the fact that it's well maintained is amazing for us, because if something is not there, we assume that it's being used in some capacity. Because when it's not, we see a whole bunch of documentation where they say it's deprecated and they're not using it anymore. So here, if they're not using something anymore, they're going to write in the description and they're slowly going to remove it over time. So this confirms essentially that they're taking care of it, and then what that unlocks essentially is that the stuff that's in there is probably being used at some capacity. So it is important. All right, cool. Here are what we're looking for. So if we see something like this, no follow, topical weight, page rank, and we are looking at this, what this essentially tells us is that topicality is probably related to when they're evaluating links, because we know that no follow is only for links, right? So this is only for link building. PageRank is usually for link building, and topicality weight therefore means how related is the link to the content. So with a thing that's linking from the source to the target is therefore kind of combined. So this is how we're looking at the leaks, and this is how we're getting you insights into how Google works. So essentially what I'm going to try to do here and why this matters is we're going to take all this knowledge that we've discovered from the leak. We're going to develop new ways of implementing it. So I have a whole bunch of stuff for you that will help you hopefully implement it. So not just theorize, say, hey, look, this is what we found. This is not about pointing out what we found explicitly. This is about understanding it and then figuring out how you could use it for better rankings, which will hopefully then increase profits, right? So that's the whole goal of this. All right. And finally, as someone has been researching and explaining the Google algorithm for over a decade, I'm very excited about this. It was back in 2012 that I was on stage in front of 2,000 people at this traffic research conference explaining Panda, right? So this is one of the first algorithm penalties that they had that dealt with user experience and also I think the links and user experience. And back then they were tracking clicks and seeing how visitors interacted with the site. So over a decade later, we finally have some confirmation and we can actually see how it works. So I've been all over the place talking about how Google's working, and this is very, very exciting for me. So let's dive into building better links, insights from the leak. All right, so now we're going to be looking at the leaks themselves. So this is going to be snippets of things that I found to be important to give us a better understanding of how Google works and things that you could implement and use right away. So this is essentially going to be the most important stuff. There's lots of stuff that I'm not covering because I don't think it is going to help you. So for instance, things like, is this an election flag or not, or Google could set special election websites. I don't think it's going to help you, so we're not going to be diving into those. We're going to be diving into what could get you better results. So here we have context 2, which essentially talking about the hash of terms near the anchor. What this means is going to be the words before and after the anchor text affect the anchor text. So this is a really important thing that we've suspected for a very long time, and it's very useful to know. The next thing is going to be here, source type. Now, what's really interesting about this is it has a very long description of what it does and what it is. And essentially what we're talking about is Google will trust anchors from base documents, which is likely means that from pages that are in the same bucket or highly related content. Now, if the content is not super related, it's going to trust the anchors on a medium rate. And if it's from low quality content, it won't trust the anchors at all. So not all anchor text is going to be trusted equally. What essentially this means is when you are building links, you want to make sure that the 5 words before and after your anchor text are relevant because they can influence the anchor text. So here's an example. Let's say you have, for the best fishing poles, click here, and the anchor text is going to be click here. Google knows by looking at the terms that best fishing poles is near the anchor text, and therefore this will influence the anchor text. So that's super important and useful to know. So that's how they know that click here is relevant. Now, even better than that would actually just to have the anchor text be relevant. So catch fish with these, and then fishing poles, that could be the anchor text. So here we'd be getting the best of both worlds, where we have a relevant anchor text and we also have relevant words around the anchor text. So I know even advanced SEOs often don't think about the context of their links, and this is one of those really important things. Also, it kind of helps us. Sometimes we can't choose our anchor text. Sometimes the anchor text, we have no control over it. In those instances, at least getting some context around will help us rank better. So let's moving on. Google also states that high quality anchor text from base documents are likely going to be considered high quality anchors. So for a long time, what we've been saying is the best links are going to be links from other pages that are currently ranking for the same term, as they all fall under the same bucket. I believe this is what Google is talking about here. So let's say I put best fishing poles. You're going to get a list of 100 different websites that are talking and ranking for best fishing poles. If you get a link out of any of these should fall within the same bucket of documents, and therefore these are going to be more relevant. So this is essentially a way to check kind of like the link bucket of pages. You put in your keyword, and all these pages that are ranking for it, Google has declared or thinks, at least in some respect, that it is highly related to your term. So these are sometimes what I'll do is I'll have a keyword and I'll look on page 6 and I'll try to get a link from there. That's still very good because it's within, it's within that scope. So anyways, that's going to be a insight that we get where Google really pays attention to links that are coming from similar buckets and words before and after. Now, as we go through here, we're talking about is local, expired, deletion date, and locality and parallel links. So the insights from this essentially are that like internal links and external links are very similar. Only a few parameters separate the two. So I actually really didn't realize this. I figured that Google might have an algorithm for internal links and an algorithm for external links. And this is actually kind of false. So my new understanding is Google will treat internal links very, very similarly. It processes them almost identically to external links, except there's a flag, is it local or not? So this is how Google determines if it's an internal link or an external link. So that's really cool. This means, conversely, that internal links are extremely, extremely important as they are almost like an external link. Next is going to be expired domains. So this is really interesting to note because for a long time, we've talked about the thing called ghost links. So ghost links is essentially if you get a whole bunch of links from a website, then those websites go away, you're still going to keep on ranking. So the links are still being counted even if the website's not there anymore or the link isn't there anymore, which is really cool. If this is what they're talking about, like let's say they notice a link and then now they put an expired flag. Now, this could also mean another thing where they found it to be on an expired domain. So this could also be them looking to see if you're doing a rank manipulation, or we believe, or it could be also that ghost links are real. So for instance, links will still have an effect in their afterlife. So here, deletion date, there you go. This is actually going to be the when they see the link that's removed. So this would also account for the ghost link phenomenon. Next thing is we're going to have locality, which is going to be the bucket, right? So you see locality and bucket, we were just talking about that. So links from the same bucket are likely worth a lot more. And then finally, we have parallel links, which means that links from the same domain might not count for as much. Now, I know it's a good idea to still have multiple links from a same domain, but the next link after might just not be worth as much as the first link. So kind of recapping here, we know that internal links are counted almost for as much as external links. So they're treated in almost the same fashion. And therefore, whenever I'm building something, I definitely want to have a whole bunch of internal links. Now, in terms of best practices, this also opens up a whole bunch of new things where when you build a page and you want to rank it, you want to get links from multiple pages. You want that anchor text to be relevant. And you also want to vary your anchor text over and over again. You don't want to just have all the same anchor text, even if it's from internal pages. I know a lot of people, whenever they're building links from internal pages, they're going to use the same anchor text over and over and over and over again. Because we want to treat them almost like external links, we want to just have contextual words around them. We want to optimize them. We want to be in with main content, and we're going to want to vary the anchor text while still staying targeted as much as possible. So the next thing as well is we don't want to get focused too much on the one link per domain. Even if you get more than one link, it still helps. However, like kind of an ideal linking situation here is you have a whole bunch of internal links, and then you're also going to get external links. So that is going to be kind of like putting everything together. And finally, Google also knows if that domain was from an expired domain or if it was renewed. So maybe this is a way that Google is checking to see if your stuff is, if you have shady link building. Let's say you get a whole bunch of, let's say that expired tag is to mark expired domains like that were renewed, and you have like 90% of your links coming from that have that tag. Let's say 90%, if 90% of your links have the expired tag, then you're probably going to get penalized on some aspect. So let's move on to the next thing, link scoring. So this is essentially how they look at links and score them. And so essentially how much the link is worth. Now, one, obviously we all know no follow. What I didn't know is that if a page has multiple links and one of them is follow, then all of them will be follow. So let's say there's 5 no follow links on a page, and then there's one do follow link, so one link with no tag or whatever, then all of them end up being follow. So I didn't really realize this, but it's kind of cool. The next thing is going to be topical weight. So this is link relevance. We've been talking about this a very, very long time. You want to get links that are related to the document that you're linking to. So for instance, there's a weight, right? So the more it's related, the better it is, because they're going to calculate a number on how related it is. So for instance, this would be a good link, right? So cats and a page talking about cats and dogs pointing to a page about dogs is great, right? Like I would take that link. It's good, it's related. However, if you want an even higher topical weight, you would have a page exclusively on dogs talking about dogs, right? So this is how we would get this topical weight number to be as high as possible. So this is essentially going to be the link building, get as related as possible in terms of links. Now, link attributes is going to be something that we just get more even insights from. So for instance, we have additional info here talking about news hubs. So is a topic trending in the news or not? One of the things that I've seen in the past is going to be press releases tend to help overall the site overall. So this is kind of a hint that if you get a press release and then you get to start building links as well, the combination of it will actually help. So this is going to be kind of a confirmation of that. Next is they might be looking at the cluster that the link belongs to. So we're going to talk about topical authority quite a bit, and essentially Google is looking at the web's content in terms of in clusters. So this could identify what kind of cluster the link is coming, like where it's coming from. This could be an additional value that when they're evaluating links. And finally, they're looking at if it's a homepage links. Do we trust the homepage? Now, in order to deal with a lot of spam, PBNs and all that, expired domains that were renewed, Google cares a lot about the homepage, and there's a whole bunch of potential penalties associated with the homepage. So if you're link building and you're building links, the homepage is going to be a very strong place to get a link from, but it is also one of the riskiest and one of the riskiest place to get a link from. So there's a whole bunch of stuff within, not just here, but within the entire documentation where they're saying, do we trust this homepage if you're getting a link from it? And if we don't trust it, then you're getting a whole bunch of homepage links, then it is going to penalize you. So now this is going to be possibly the most important part of this entire leak, or one of them. And they're talking about NSR. So went through a whole bunch of a whole huge process to figure out what NSR means, including looking at all the documentation talking about NSR and parts of NSR of the entire document, and looking at the descriptions that they had. And finally, we were able to piece together that it likely stands for normalized site rank. And this is a very strong value because they have a normalized site rank and then they multiply it by 1,000. So this will play a big role in the link attribute, right? In the link power, and they also use this to evaluate site quality. So this normalized site rank is essentially, I believe, a measure of how your site ranks compared to how your site performs compared to other websites. So we're going to be talking more about this in just a bit. But we also have page tags, which is essentially tags that will describe your page or that describe the link, but they deprecated this. We also have PageRank and PageRank NS. And PageRank NS is also one of those things that really, really changes the way we do SEO online. And most people just, I feel, didn't catch on to this. PageRank NS means PageRank nearest seed. And PageRank nearest seed means that they're using seed like algorithm to measure PageRank now. So that's absolutely huge. And of course, we get page score, spam score associated with links. So before I dive into these big other metrics mean, let me just finish off with page spam score, where Google has a list of terms that they associate with spam. So there's this thing called trending spam. They know the terms that are currently trending in spam. And if you have a whole bunch of spammy words in the link or next to the link or whatnot, this will likely trigger the spam score. So this is a more brute force, old school approach to doing things. but there is a spam score associated with the link. All right, cool. Let's dive in to normalized site rank. So a normalized site rank is incredibly important because it's likely a comparison of how your site ranks versus other websites. So for instance, Wikipedia, I don't know if these are accurate, they're likely not. But for instance, if Wikipedia was ranked number one, a big website was ranked number 1,000, and then a small little niche website was ranked 300,000, then that means that getting a link from a rank one website would be incredibly, like much more powerful than getting a link from a rank 300,000 website. So it's normalized from 0 to 1, and they're likely comparing two competitors in your industry, and they are going to multiply this by 1,000 to get a huge weight that influences rankings. So I recently did a paper on the March Core update, and I talked about how they might have introduced a new metric into weighing links, and this might be it. So let me dive in a bit more. So essentially what this means is when you're link building, you want to get links from the biggest players in the industry. Getting a whole bunch of links from smaller websites will have a negligible impact, as opposed to getting one single link from a major player in the industry. So sites that are ranking for everything likely have a high NSR score, so a normalized site rank score. So that's where you want to get guest posts. So we know the sites like The Verge, I don't know, the Washington Post, or Reddit, or so forth. We want to get real links from big websites that are ranking, have a whole bunch of traffic, because those are likely closer to the seed websites and also have a high NSR. So that's where we want our links, instead of get links from very small websites. Now, the other huge discovery, I just mentioned it, is going to be PageRank nearest seed. Now, this is absolutely critical for our link building, because Google in the past has denied using seed sites, because seed sites have a whole bad connotation. So they're great in theory, like the algorithm works, except it implies and it means one thing. It means that they have to manually set seeds, right? And people hate the idea of Google manually selecting seed sites in order to better use their algorithm. However, the scientific papers, or the search engine papers, like essentially the documentation and classes that they teach, where they say, hey, this is how you would approach building a search engine from scratch, they all talk about PageRank nearest seed and the nearest seed approach. They've been talking about this for a decade, and it works very, very well. What you do essentially is you take a whole bunch of seed sites that only link out to trusted places, websites that are highly moderated, is very, very difficult to get a link from, and then those are going to be your seed sites. And if you are getting a link from that, it is going to count for a ton. If you get a link from a site that is getting a link from a seed site, then it counts for a bit less. And the further out you move, the less powerful the link is going to be. So for instance, if harvard.edu is a seed site, and you are getting a link, and it links to your school. So harvard.edu is going to be the seed. It links to the school site, and then the school site links to your site. This is great because you're one hop away from the seed, right? So this is going to have a very, very, very high value. If the school site then links to a news website, and then it links to your website, then you're getting another hop. And this is how far the distance is from a real seed. And this is essentially baked into the calculation. So in a different visual thing, this is how it looks. Now, if you're getting a link from a low tier, so let's say you had a whole bunch of Timmy projects and local shop, and they link to another website, and they link to another website, and they link to another website, and then finally that website links to you, that link is going to be worth next to nothing, right? So that is why this is essentially changing the way we do SEO in terms of link building, because now we know we need to get those highly authoritative links that are very close to seed sites, as opposed to, let's say, building kind of a whole bunch of artificial links from like low-powered sites. They won't do as much. Now, what are the seed sites? Well, we don't know for sure. Google's not going to tell us. This is probably a very secretive list. However, we do have hints in the research papers that have been published in the past, and a whole bunch of information. They've just said, look, they're going to be usually educational websites, government websites, military websites. So here I actually extracted some of the top educational sites, which are likely seed sites. These are top government websites that are likely seed sites as well, and military websites that are also likely seed sites. So these websites is very, very difficult to get a link from the root of these websites, and from, because they're highly moderated. So this might be what they're using. Maybe the educational websites have, are too, and maybe there's access where students could create links, and they've kind of decided to not use them as seed sites. We actually don't know exactly what the seed sites are, unfortunately. However, you do know that if it is ranking very well, and it might have a ton of authority, it might be a seed site. So that's essentially the concept of seed sites, and that's going to be changing our approach to link building. All right, let's move on. For links, we're almost done. Link relevance. Now, link relevance has a score. So how much does it relate to the main entity? So we're talking about topicality weight. This is essentially another way of kind of like looking at it. How relevant is the source of the link linking to the document that it's linking to? And in practical terms, you just want relevant links as much as possible. Next thing that I thought was really interesting is going to be the boost source blocker. So this is really cool, because essentially what it means is that a target, or like a website that you're getting a link from, might be a good place to get a link from, even if Google doesn't rank it. So for instance, directories, category pages, and so forth, they might be a good sign of a link. And Google says, okay, well, we do trust if you appear in this directory. However, we don't want to rank the directory. So this is essentially a flag to use it as a link, but not boost it. The next thing is going to be, they're looking at in-body target or outlinks target. So this this is speculation here, where they maybe look at links from within the main content and outside the main content. So you always have, on every single web page, you have an area where the link is found. So was it within the main content of the topic or the article, or was it in a sidebar, in a footer, in a header, and so forth? This might be what they are looking and calculating. Now, we also have, this is for local annotation confidence. So this, if you're trying to rank a local business, they're looking at possible mentions of the website. So this could just be business names, or it could be citations. This is kind of another thing that goes into their calculation. And also, they're looking at the confidence that the website is relevant to the business listed. So let's kind of move on to what this means. Essentially, if you have a listing like here, they're going to look at the website itself to see, hey, how much does a website relate to the listing? So if you have a listing here and you're filling out and it's all about plumbing, you want to make sure the website is also mentioning plumbing if you want to rank on this local website. So that was another insight that I just wanted to kind of put out there that I thought was interesting. All right, now moving on to anchors for rank. One of the things that we've discovered is going to be that the external and internal links are combined to determine relevance, anchor relevance. So as I mentioned before, one of the things that I discovered is that internal links are very, very closely related to external links. They're treated in very similar fashions. And when their Google is essentially calculating what that page is about, they're basically taking the external link extra anchor text and the internal links, and they're combining them all together. And that will give you your anchor text, right? So that's awesome. I didn't really realize that. I suspected it, but I didn't really realize it. Now, let's see. Yeah, okay, cool. They also count the different types of anchor text, the same anchor text, external, internal link, and they create a score in order to essentially score that anchor text. So that's another thing I didn't really realize, that how important anchor text was. So if you're only building using anchor text that says click here, you're going to be missing out a lot on rankings, because Google has a whole bunch of different sections dedicated to anchor text, right? So anchor text is going to be super important for determining what the page is about. Next is going to be fragmented score. So, or a score from fragments. That's really interesting, because if you're building partial anchor text, let's say you want to rank for best fishing pole and you only write fishing pole, that is going to be a fragment of that main anchor text. So Google will look at fragments of the anchor text and kind of put them together, so that you don't, which means essentially you don't need to have the same anchor text repeating over and over and over again. You could have fragments of that anchor text. You might even just be able to have one that says fishing and another one that says pole, and Google will count that because it's fragments of the anchor text. So that was another really interesting thing that I saw. So this essentially highlights the importance of having many internal anchor texts every time you want to rank something. So whenever I'm putting something out from now on, I'm going to make sure I have a whole bunch of relevant anchor texts from internal pages pointing to my page. So as I mentioned, like we just went over this example, for example, fishing pole, grazed fishing poles, fishing poles for fishing and fishing. We don't want to repeat the same anchor text over and over and over again. We want to use it once or twice, not too often. And then we want to make sure that we're varying it using fragments. All right, so this is super cool, right? So right here we have match score. And what they're talking about here is that they're looking at the value of this trusted source to determine if similar anchor texts are classified as spam or not. So this entire section here is looking at if you should trust anchor text or not. And here's something that they developed that I think is pure genius. So if you're in a business such as casinos, CBD, or any high risk industry, then Google looks at the anchor text from trusted websites in order to validate the links from less trusted websites. So in practice, what this means is if you get 10 links from a random website pointing to your website with the anchor text casino slot, it might think it's spam. But then if you get one link from a trusted website, let's say Harvard, with that same anchor text, and Google's not only going to accept it, but it's also going to validate all the other anchor texts. So if you're in a high risk industry, this is super important right here. Look, you're going to have a whole bunch of links that say casino review pointing to your website. And what this means essentially that Google is not going to trust any of these links because they're going to be like, oh, well, these might be spammy anchor text. They're not going to be trusted essentially. Now, if Google notices that you get one trusted link, then all of these links become trusted. So let me show you what this looks like. Here, you're going to get one trusted link from, let's say, harvard.edu. Now, you're probably not going to get this, but let's say it's from another trusted website that Google sees you, that points to you. Anyway, essentially, this casino review link from a trusted website then validates all the other links that you're getting from these untrusted websites. So in this instance, all the links are trusted because of this trusted link that you're getting there. So that's why if you're link building, and we're doing a whole bunch of link building these days, what you're going to want to do is you want to make sure you're getting at least one link from a very, very high authoritative place with a very relevant anchor text. And then all the other links that you have are going to work even better because Google might not trust them until you get that one link that validates all the other ones. So anecdotally, a long time ago, I was ranking or I was competing for drone reviews. And one of the tricks in order to validate all those lower powered links that I was getting to that page was to get two very, 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 very strong and highly relevant links back to my website. I think I had one from like Lifehack and one from Engadget. And those links validated all the other links, which I had a lot, from shadier places. And that in turn helped me rank #1 for drone reviews for a very long time during the drone view boom. All right. The next insight is that Google, you trust websites that are linking out using newsy anchor text. This is actually huge for determining if a site is a good source for a link or not. And essentially what you want to do is you want sites that are going to have a whole bunch of newsy links. And what this means is that they're linking out using anchor text such as website, click here, here, and so forth. This is essentially anchor texts that are typically associated with news websites, as opposed to websites that link out with a whole bunch of commercial terms. So if most of the anchor text on a website is best drone reviews, blue t-shirts, best CBD oil, then the trust score for that entire website will be very low, and then you don't want to link from it. So the implications are huge, and I almost don't want to share this, but because we know this now, it means we could actually manipulate the trust score of a website and how impactful the links might be that it is giving out. Essentially what you could do if you have, I'm not saying you should do this, but if you have a website and you're putting out links there and you wanted to potentially increase the trust score, you could artificially link out with a ton of anchor text with website, click here, read here, site here, and just link out like crazy, have a whole bunch of pages, and that would in theory increase the trust score of the website, which would then make all the other links work better. So if you have a website and 90% of your links are going to be best drone reviews, blue t-shirt, best CBD oil, then Google says, we don't trust the links out of this website. So by adding, let's say, 100,000 or 1,000, whatever, or even 100 extra things, links that link out with this anchor text, now you have more newsy anchor text, and therefore Google is going to trust the entire website more. So this is actually quite a, in my opinion, a crazy discovery. And by the way, you're responsible to whatever you do with a website. But I thought that this was kind of revolutionary. All right, cool. Now, bad links. The next thing that we had in terms of links is going to be the big penalty page. So there's this whole section in the leaks that just have a whole bunch of things like penguin last update, anchor text, bad links penalized, penguin penalty, and so forth. You can see the list here. And essentially, the highlights is that penguin periodically updates. So we kind of knew this. It's not updated in real time. We don't know when the last time they updated it, but it is a periodic penalty. Next thing is they count anchor text. So likely, if you're using too many anchors that are exactly the same, you're going to get penalized. The next thing is that pages can have a bad links. Pages can have a flag that says bad links, and then the page is toast. So essentially, you want to make sure that the document is not penalized with the bad backlinks flag. And that it might be, they might have donation pages with a bad backlinks flag. They might have a whole bunch of, like, if they just detect a whole bunch of spam on a page, they might flag it with bad backlinks. Maybe even scholarly or scholarships for a while, they're having this bad backlinks. They might have a tag for this on these different pages that they manually set and say, okay, we don't want to count any of the links from this page, even though the rest of the website could be good. Now, next thing is they check for homepage links. I mentioned this before, but if you have 10 links and they're all from homepage links on the same host, then this is likely going to lead to a penalty. So let's say you have a website host. It's hosting 10 different websites, and on every single one of those websites, you're getting homepage links, which is exactly how PBNs used to work. People used to have one host, put 10 PBNs on it, and have homepage links pointing back to the main website. This is literally the penalty for that. Next is going to be they check external links, external link anchor text a lot more. And what's really interesting is you could actually be protected by early anchor text. So this might be a shield against negative SEO. And as we'll see in just a second, they actually have protection against negative SEO, which I thought was really interesting. And of course, you can have too many sources. So if a web page gets, let's say, 100,000 links, that is going to be and trigger the too many sources flag here, and you might run into issues ranking as well. So next thing is they're going to be prioritizing, checking PBN homepage links. They really, really, really don't like those. There's special trust for anchor texts that are coming from page rank 5 and up in terms of powers. So they will trust those a lot more. They check anchor text from pages marked with expired. So we talked about this before, but if you have a whole bunch of links that are from websites and pages that were that from domains that expired, and then you renewed them and rebuilt them, those likely will have an expired tag on it. So if you thought you were smart, I've done this too, but like, let's say we go out, we get an expired domain, and we rebuild it using archive.org, Google will likely tag it with the expired tag, right? And then if we're getting a whole bunch of links from those, then that all combined will likely run us into trouble. Next thing, you have maximum of 5,000 anchors pointing to a page. So we didn't, it's rare that we're going over that limit, but that is kind of the limit they set. So that's kind of interesting to know. The next thing is going to be redundant anchors are important. So likely repeating the same anchor text over and over and over and over again gets you into trouble because they're counting it. The total quantity of domains linking is going to be the most important part. So whenever you're trying to rank, they're looking at the total domains linking. So that's going to be probably a ranking factor. They also look at how many anchor texts per domain. So what you want to avoid is getting site-wide anchor texts that are highly commercial. So you don't want to have a link pointing to a website in a sidebar. So you don't want to have a sidebar link with a big money keyword pointing to your website, because that is going to be this specific flag that we found that they're looking for whenever they're trying to penalize stuff. All right, so avoiding link penalties. This is going to be the easy action things. Is usually when you're link building, you want to vary your anchor text. You don't want to repeat it over and over and over and over again. And also you want to make sure that you are not building anchor text too quickly from too many sources, because there is a measure of how many links are being built in a specific amount of time. So you likely want to build links slowly over time while varying the anchor text, and then that should be fine. You want to make sure to get a handful of links, but no, not an excessive amount, and avoid excessive repetition. And also, like, once again, homepage links are very, very dangerous. Now, here's the negative SEO part. I thought was really cool. This is likely used to protect people from negative SEO attacks. It's very cool. It appears as if there's an active spam shield if it detects a negative attack. So here you can actually see they start the demotion date and then they end the demotion date, right? So there's a start and there's an end where they kind of maybe take it down and then it goes back up, and they will look at the frequency of the links coming in. So if there's, how many days 80% of these phrases were discovered. So they try to isolate and detect where those links started coming from, and then they will ignore all the links within that specific period of time. Super cool to see. Google kind of looking out for people. All right, so here's site quality rewards and penalties. I'm really excited about this one because it has a huge impact on your entire site. So first thing we notice is that Google is going to be talking about user-generated content quite a lot. We've seen this ranking all over the places. Forums and Reddits are doing really well, getting a big boost. And it seems as if there is essentially a signal for how good those pages are, because you don't want to rank any forum page. You don't want to rank any Reddit page or thread. So they're measuring how much effort went into this discussion. Now, how they're measuring this, maybe with an LLM, I don't know, but there is an effort score for user discussion. Next thing is going to be product reviews. It says promotion or demotion, but it's likely a demotion. It seems as if they're demoting a lot of product reviews. Next is going to be there's an exact match domain demotion. So this we've known for a very long time, was introduced around 2014, 15 or so, if my memory serves me. They essentially want to prevent sites like bestdronereviews.com from ranking. They don't want to have huge domains with just the exact keyword in there. There's a demotion for that. Next, we actually have the NSR confidence. So this is huge. This is going to be normalized site rank confidence. We also have a low quality flag, nav demotion. We have a whole bunch of stuff that are related to penalties. So, and of course, a measure of site authority. So Google's actually long denied they have anything to do with site authority. And there's a measure of site authority right here. So, and it's converted, by the way, from quality normalized site rank. So this is going to be, once again, an indication that your normalized site rank is essentially your website is going to be related to your site authority within the industry. So we're going to dive into how to deal with that and how to address that in a bit. But I just want to emphasize this once again. Now, here's a whole bunch of other stuff that we found for site quality. First, which I thought it was funny, was baby panda. And I was like, oh man, that's crazy. So this is likely, if it's baby panda, it is also likely linked to user experience. And what's interesting is it's on top of the original panda. So a lot of times, if you've seen a drop with one core update and you see a subsequent drop with another core update, this might be what's at play here, where you're penalized by panda in the first instance, and then you're penalized by baby panda again. So if as Google has been rolling out newer versions of panda, this is essentially the baby panda v2 promotion, which is could be applied on top. So this is why some sites might have seen double drops after each core update. Now, there actually seems to be a boost for authority sites, which is really interesting, as we just covered 5 seconds ago that the site authority was kind of a measure of the normalized site rank right here. That means that if you have a high normalized site rank, then you're going to get a boost on top of things. So they are not only lowering websites, but they're also boosting other websites that they really like. Next, we have craft absolute host signals, which essentially is going to be, or in my opinion, is going to be raw click signals that are used to evaluate a website as well. So this is another super interesting thing where there is a lot of promotions and demotions, and they're using click signals to determine what to reward and to penalize. Next is they're also looking at the topics that could be that are the topics that are covered by the website. So essentially, topic embeddings here is going to be looking at the website as a whole, of what topics they're covering. And of course, there's a scamminess of a website. So they don't really tell us what they're using, but they are measuring and giving a score of website scamminess. Now, here's the original Panda demotions. This is what I was likely on stage explaining to people a long time ago. And there's an unauthoritative score, which I thought was interesting because if you have an authoritative score, isn't an unauthoritative score kind of like the opposite? I don't know. I guess it's easier to use in the algorithm. So they have an unauthoritative score here. So, so as we see, they have several layers of penalties. So the recent helpful core update, March core update, and more are all likely in here as site quality metrics. So if you were hit by a penalty recently, then or you've experienced a traffic drop, it's one of those, right? From an unauthoritative score to click signals to a lot of stuff about normalized site rank, Panda, and even Baby Panda. These are all stacked together, and I will be diving in and explaining more of these later. However, let's keep on going to scores. Otherwise, I could just get bogged down here. We also have mentions of a site score. So a long time ago, Google has actually said, hey, there is no site score or whatever. Well, there is. It literally says site score right here. And what's interesting is that they don't calculate the score from the entire website. So this site fraction, which I didn't really realize, but they actually talk about the fraction of the site that went into the computation for the site score. So maybe they only measured 20% of your pages and they extrapolate from there. So essentially what that means is you want to have your 20% of your pages, the ones that are likely being scored, and the ones that are likely being scored are going to be the ones that are likely being visited by real people. Those are going to be the ones that you want to make sure are good. So spoiler alert, the site score is probably a measure related to user experience, and site fraction means which part, how much did we test, how much traffic were we able to track. So if you have hidden pages on your website and Google never sends visitors to or never sees, then they will not account it into the site score when they're measuring the site score. All right, cool. Oh, by the way, and this could be a good thing, by the way. So that means that if you have a really, really, really old article, it won't necessarily penalize you, even though it's a really, really old article. It's still in the index, but it might not just be counted when they're recalculating these site scores. So that could be a really good thing, by the way. All right, so there are also a lot of mentions of topical authority. So when you're thinking of a website as a whole, Google looks at both the page embeddings, so the words and topics covered on the page, and also the entire website embedding. So that is going to be really important because they also look at how far away that page is from the main topic. So essentially what this means is if you're publishing an unrelated page on a website, it might not do as well, not because it's a bad page, but because the rest of the website is not related. So essentially this is the whole topic of topical authority. When you're building a topical authority website, sites with a narrow focus will usually fare better as Google measures how far related a website or a page is when it's compared to the rest of the website. So if you have a section and you have a whole bunch of content and it's all in home and garden, as soon as you start putting in content about business, it is not going to be as closely related. It's going to be a further distance, and therefore this content won't do as well. Now, there comes a point where you do want to expand, and then you will add more and more and more content. You just lose a bit of a boost. So this is not necessarily going to be a penalty. It is just not going to be rewarded as much. Hopefully that there is a difference between those two. Now, this means that when you're starting off a website or you're starting a new website, it might be a very, very, very good idea to keep a narrow focus and expand it over time, because when you're a small website, you need that boost if you want to compete. So really, really small websites don't have much link power, they don't have much authority. So you likely want to keep it very, very narrow. That is going to give you a boost and give you a chance of ranking against other people. And as you expand, well, then you can take from there. All right, cool. Now let's go over content that ranks. So these are the insights we've got. The first thing is that they look at entities whenever they are evaluating content. Entities are going to be the core of what Google are using to determine what to rank where and what to show where. And essentially that is how they determine relevance for content. They're also looking at semantic nodes in which the document lies. So where does this document lie in relationship to other documents and in the whole grand scheme of things? So they're looking at outgoing links of a document, which I thought was interesting, and of course freshness and updated content. So Google's also long said or I've said many times that freshness doesn't really matter. However, looking at this, there's a lot of indications that they're looking for very fresh content. They're looking at dates. They really care about the timeliness of content. They don't want to show outdated stuff. So having fresher content will usually, in my opinion, fare better than older content. Now, um, they also have a whole bunch of labels, right? So entity labels and topic labels, and they even have a thing called golden right here, which means that the a golden flag essentially means that a human reviewer came in and deemed this to be the gold standard. So a very important document. So these all the flags here is likely what they use to retrieve documents whenever you're searching for something. So whenever you put it in a keyword in Google, Google has to decide, okay, well, where are we taking this corpus of information from? We need to we need to go out and start ranking pages. And this is essentially what it's going to retrieve to say, okay, well, we want to take this subset of pages and then we're going to go score them and then finally show them to someone. Next, and this I thought was really important, was that they have a focus entity. So this is the one that they think the page is most relevant for. So this is going to be something I'm maybe paying attention to. You don't want to just put a whole bunch of entities and not make it very clear what that page is about, because they are going to be trying to figure out what the main entity of the page is. The next thing is going to be they have syntactic date and privacy sensitive. So they also note if a date mentioned in the title URL is going to be the same as the other dates in the document. So let's say you published a document and in your code it says the document was published in 2024, but then you're putting 2025 in the title, right? Then they're going to be like, oh, well, there's a disconnect here where it doesn't match. So this I thought was really interesting. Also, there's a special note on the like a kind of a flag if there's private information, like a person. This might be a person's address, a credit card, maybe a phone number, or so forth. We don't exactly know, but this is privacy sensitive data, which means, and this has been, it's kind of been a trick for a very long time. If let's say you want like a content removed from the index, you want it to drop in rankings, then you could add something that is you add very private information on that page. And then Google will see that and say, oh boy, we don't want to list this accidentally. And then that page is likely to kind of drop in rankings. So avoid having very privacy sensitive information on a page, because Google will make note of it and that could tank the page's rankings. So this applies even in comments, by the way, of web pages. So if there's a website with comments open, you could do some real damage here. All right, cool. Now, in terms of going over what we've discovered is that Google uses entities, topics, and semantic nodes. You kind of think of it like this. You want to rank for this main term. You want to go and look at the related entities around it and their relationship to the main entity. So that means that your page could also appear for many queries, even if the words don't appear on the page, because that term might be recognized as a topic within the semantic node. So they have a main focus entity, and Google tries to figure out what that main focus entity is by looking at all the entities that you're using on their page. So this is essentially how Google kind of like looks at content. So if you want to rank for SEO checklist, you want to have you want it to be the main focus entity. You want to use a whole bunch of related entities, and then it'll be able to narrow down, okay, well, using all these related entities to this one main central entity right here. And this is what you're likely this is going to be your focus entity essentially. And this is what we're going to rank you for. So I thought this was super interesting because this is something we've been doing for quite some time. And this information inside Google's API documentation kind of confirms what we've been doing and what we've been thinking. Now, personally, what I try to do when I'm trying to rank things, I try to add all the related entities multiple times on my page, and I will use the exact entity more than once. I'll try to use that one quite a few times. So let's say I'm trying to rank for SEO checklist, and in my example, then I'm going to add that entity over and over again. And also I'm going to start adding a whole bunch of related entities. So I'll be using these within the headline, within the title, the headline, and the text, and the images. So those are the main places I'm going to be putting my entities. This helps Google build a highly relevant embedding, and it sets me apart, and it maximizes my chances of rankings. All right, so now let's move on to page info. One of the things I thought that was interesting when dealing with entities is they have a reference page like Wikipedia. So if you're looking for related entities and you're not using some sort of software, what you could do is sometimes check Wikipedia for that entity, and see if they have a listing. So if, let's say, here they give the example of apple.com, you go to the Apple Wikipedia, Google's also gone to the Apple Wikipedia in order to look for entities. So that's kind of interesting. So you want to make sure you're going to the Wikipedia page, looking at what they're talking about, what they're discussing, and if that aligns with what Google thinks, then you're going to be golden, right? So you want to put some of that content on your website or build out a web site like using that content. And this is actually one of the ways we build topical maps. So whenever we're trying to build topical maps of what we should be covering, a lot of times we're actually going to be checking Wikipedia in order to get an idea and kind of a frame of reference on like, oh, we want to cover this, we want to cover this, we want to cover this as well. All right. So here we have two really interesting metrics. One is giving me link info, and I would love to get my hands on link info because essentially they have a way of listing all the links for a specific page with the score. So the next metric that they have as well is the name info, which is lists all the entities associated with a page with a score. So when Google's trying to retrieve stuff, we know they have access to all the links and all the entities, which brings me to the next point that people have been focused on forever, is that links and entities are two of the major driving factors in terms of rankings. So whenever Google's querying a page like, hey, what are we ranking? Well, they're looking at site quality, but beyond that, it's going to be links and entities. So in terms of just better rankings, my first priority is always going to be to have a high quality website. So wherever you're putting the content, you want to put it on that website. You want to make sure it's seen as high quality on Google. But then after that, it is going to be entities, links, and even topical authority. So moving on, Google has a whole bunch of page information, and they pull out the power of all the links, all the related entities, and once again they're mentioning PageRank NS, and this is where I was able to confirm that was PageRank nearest seed. So previously I talked about this, and it was just written in PageRank NS. It literally says it in the description here, PageRank nearest seed. So now we know they're using seeds to calculate PageRank, which is really cool. So that's just the confirmation right here. Now, in the content web page info, they're mentioning a whole bunch of stuff. One of them that I thought was interesting was original content. And I believe that this is still referring to original content versus duplicate content. I believe that later on when they're measuring site content quality, they actually have a thing that they're looking for, which is going to be the inverse frequency of terms, which is going to measure originality. Now, in terms of document info, another kind of key point I pulled out of this is going to be bad SSL certificate. If you have a bad SSL certificate, you're probably not going to rank at all. So that's very important to keep in mind, although most people have this covered already. And finally, there's a lot of information about creation date, how long, how fresh, the timeliness of documents. So Google cares a lot about registration info, and it actually goes into a thing called domain edge signal. So I don't know exactly what this is, but it's probably something they created in order to fight PBNs. So Google has been waging a war against PBNs for about a decade now, and this is probably just some part of it. In terms of document information, one thing I thought was interesting was that every single page seems to have a rich snippet associated with it. So when we've been testing, one of the cool things we discovered is that sometimes you could show the search snippet for the rank number one of search snippet, and then the second search snippet, and then third search snippet, and so forth. Because there is rankings for search snippets, we just don't see it. We only see number one. But there are tricks where you could just disable number one, and then you see number two, and number three, number four, and so forth. What I didn't realize is that every single document that's out there will have a search snippet associated with it. It's just not shown most of the time because only one's shown at a time. And finally, they literally have something called quality signals in the document info section, which I thought was interesting. So they're just looking at a whole bunch of signals on that page. What they are, we just don't know. All right. Finally, they're also storing a list of related pages to a document. So that I thought was really interesting, found here. So what this means is if you search for, let's say, I don't know, how to renovate a home, then it knows that you're interested in home renovations. So they could link this document to another document. So essentially, if you've done Google searches in the past and then you redo a search and then you get something very related, or there's something related to that search, this will likely be what they're using in order to know that a user might be interested in one thing because they searched for another thing. And finally, this I thought was also interesting, where they have a cutoff. So they could enable to not show a page if its page rank is lower than a predetermined amount. So for instance, if you're creating a search snippet algorithm and you're saying, okay, I want to show the search snippet. Well, I only want to show the search snippet if it's from a page that has a PR of 2 or above or something. They could do this with this variable. So that doesn't tell us that they're doing it for specific things. It just tells us that they have the option to only show documents if it's above a certain PR. Very cool. All right. So now this is going to be the avoiding penalties and content evaluation section. One of my my bread and butter, because I've been focusing on page and creating amazing content for a very long time. And I've also been focusing on avoiding penalties and helping people recover. So let's dive in to the juice that we found here. So one is going to be UAC spam score. So we don't know exactly what UAC stands for. However, it might stand for user automation or user activity. So one of these is going to be my best guess. Maybe we'll have an update later on where we kind of figure out what that stands for. The next is going to be spam token content score and trend spam score. That suggests that Google might have a list of spammy words they use to measure spam. Maybe mentions of casino, Viagra might trigger it. So let me explain and dive into a bit more what this likely means. So every single year, there's a whole bunch of different spam that pops up. So the spam from 2010 is not the same spam as in 2024 and 2025 and so forth. So every year there's new spam topics that are trending, and Google will very likely keeps a list of the trending spam. I've actually found documentation on that was covering this topic, and essentially you could think of it as a giant list of just trending spam topics. And if they find a whole bunch of trending spam topics on your site, then they will be able to measure it with the trend spam score. So for instance, if this year is going to be protein powder XX4 or super probiotic 15 or something, and that just tends to be trending. I'm not saying those things are spam, but I'm just saying that, like, if Google declares that to be spam and you get a whole bunch of links for those, then you will probably increase the trend spam score. So that's most likely what the trend spam score is. And unless you're specifically targeting that term, you want to avoid having comments or multiple spam recognized entities. So if your page is not talking about Viagra specifically, try to avoid having those terms on the page. It should help you rank. All right. Now, moving on for more spam and content. One of the cool things that I found was going to be freshness twiddler, which is very likely a freshness boost giving to fresh content. So Google, even though they've said you don't need to make things fresher or not, it appears to be a major factor, and even talk about it in the freshness as a freshness twiddler. The next is there is a your money or your life score that we kind of all knew, but this just confirms it for stuff that is in very sensitive categories. For instance, money stuff, financial, health things. There's a special score that measures probably the trustiness of that. So Google cares also of last significant update. And I've been saying this for a very, very long time, but it's nice for it to be confirmed, is that if you only change a few words on a page, it's not going to trigger this. So I've been doing optimization for quite a while. And if you try to optimize a page and you're like, oh, I'm just missing these 2 words, and you just add 2 words to the page, it is not going to be enough to trigger the last significant update, and it's not going to be able to go and start the whole refresh process. Because I think that when the crawl bots notice that the last significant update has been a long time, it'll go in and recalculate the score. So this is probably where it's used. They're just saying, okay, well, when's the last time we really saw this, and calculated the score on this. So what you want to do is you want to add a significant update to the page, adding the words that were missing, and then it'll trigger. This will probably get updated, and it'll trigger a recalculation of the score, and then you get a new ranking. So all that has been confirmed with this one tag, which is why this leak is so cool, because we see this, and I'm like, oh, now we can confirm that this whole thing is working, and this is what you want to do. All right. Next, we have top petacat tax ID. So this is this is used in Site Boost Twiddler, which is very, very important to determine result query matching. So essentially what this means is going to be topically aligned content gets a boost if the site is focused on the subject. So imagine you're searching for dog food for puppies, and the Site Twiddler or Site Boost Twiddler would analyze the query, determine that it's for pet food, and then looks and sees that your category for your website is going to be pet food, and therefore they're more likely to show that website for that query. Essentially, topical authority gets a boost, which is why there's been a whole bunch of people saying, look, you want to have focused content and you want to have supporting content, and you want your your category of the website to be aligned with whatever you're creating. Now, this acts and functions very, very, very well for what I'm going to say small to medium-sized sites. Once you get into the mega sites, you start to get up authority in almost all categories. But when you are in the small to medium, which is almost most people, it's probably going to be most people watching this, you want to make sure it's highly aligned. So here I have an example of highly aligned. Everything is in the home category. And I just as a reference, because it's easy to understand, we're using Google's officially listed categories. And one of the ways I've been checking is I actually we could actually use Google's classifying AI that's available in natural language. And we actually built something to be able to check a whole bunch of pages. So what I will do is I'll put in either the domain to see, okay, this domain is all about arts and entertainment. So if I put content that's in arts and entertainment, it's likely to get a boost on that website. So I could kind of get an idea, and I could put all these domains, or I could even put individual links and then analyze and figure out, okay, well, what is going to be the top category of this domain? And then that will likely get a boost. I also use this when I'm building links because I want to get topical authority links. I want to get links that are related. So there's a whole bunch of applications, and it's really cool to see this top pick a cat ID that says it goes into boost. So a whole bunch of people that focus on building topical authority websites are going to be happy to see this in action. All right. For instance, here, yeah, exactly. I just covered this. All right. So moving on, we have finally the original content score. So this is going to be, it might be the ratio of duplicate content to original content. However, it sounds as if they have, so this might, a while ago, we were recovering websites by removing and trimming a whole bunch of duplicate content. So whenever a website would have too much too much duplicate content, like a whole bunch of tag pages, whole bunch of stuff, I believe that this is the factor, or this is the score that was being affected. So when we would fix this score, essentially trimming down the website so it wouldn't have 100,000 pages of duplicate content, we would see a significant boost in rankings. I think this was what was being changed in terms of the metrics in the back end. They also have doc level spam score, which is another spam score for the document. We don't exactly know what this is, but there's a whole bunch of stuff dealing with spam. All right. And once again, we have freshness signals encoded. So Google cares about freshness signals so much. I think it's underrated. And I think that we need to just, I think for a long time, they've actually been saying, oh, don't update the page. Just date just to update it, or just don't update a page if it's just for the sake of updating it. But I do think that actually might be something you might want to do because it appears to really help. And also, this is completely out of nowhere. They have scaled spam score Eric, and my name is Eric. So is this a penalty for Eric? I don't know. This is not nice. Anyways, so I thought that was just funny. All right. This was a surprise. So I didn't see this coming at all, even though I've experienced it throughout the years. I've never even thought of this. All right. So this is biased data. So this might be a signal that measures how neutral or biased content is. So overly salesy affiliate pages might not rank as well. And looking back now in retrospect, I've experienced this. In retrospect, whenever I've had overly salesy, like buy this is the best thing ever, just like really, really overly positive stuff, the pages just haven't performed as well as when I have more neutral and yeah, less biased pages. So this might be a calculation of how biased a data document is. So that's very interesting. That one I just didn't see, but in looking in retrospect, makes sense. They once again have a your money or your life score. Um, so this is going to be for important documents. They have also, okay, spam cookbook action. So spam cookbook is going to be a whole bunch of spammy techniques that they were talking about in the past. This might be triggers that they use on spam pages where you're using shady tricks, maybe like doorway pages or invisible text. This is likely going to fall into the spam cookbook. So that is a thing that they're checking for. You've had to have been around for a while to know all these spam techniques. All right, cool. So for me, the biggest like, oh wow, was the bias stuff. So when I was covering overly promotional stuff, it wasn't performing as well as neutral articles. This might be why. So from now on, one of the ways I'm going to be changing is whenever I'm writing affiliate articles, affiliate reviews, product reviews, or anything like that, I'm going to try to adopt a more professional, neutral tone when reviewing products. The other thing is I actually believe that that should convert almost just as well, because people aren't stupid. People will see, oh, this guy is only gushing about this product. It can't, maybe something's off. When it's more professional, you might trust it a lot more, and that might convert better than just being overly, happy about something. All right. Next, we have localized cluster. So Google apparently there's a topical authority role, topical relevance that plays a significant role. We covered this before. They have a specific keyword stuffing score. So we've known this for a long time. What you don't want to do is just have keywords in your title or just keywords in your content that repeat over and over and over again. This is probably just something they've been using since like 2012, 2010. So it's probably been there for a while. But once again, like, don't keyword stuff. And what I thought was interesting is whenever they have the word brain, this is going to be them kind of signaling that they're using AI for this. So either maybe not the latest AI model, but maybe an old AI model. So they have an AI that is kind of guesstimating the amount of spam on a page. So they use AI to determine, a spam score. So I thought that was interesting. That's been my experience with Google. Whenever they have, brain in the thing, it means they're using AI. All right, cool. Moving on, they have a spam rank, and once again, there's a likelihood that this document links to known spammers. So your outgoing links can hurt your rankings. If you're linking to a whole bunch of, Viagra or shady places, and you're not you're talking about that, then your rank is going to go down. And once again, compressed quality signals and crowding data and host stage. This is all really interesting. So first, crowding data means crowd data. So these are going to be user signals. So the compressed quality signals and crowding data is probably going to be what users think about your content. And what was interesting, and a whole bunch of people caught on to this, and we already knew, but Google's denied it in the past, is here's a confirmation that they're using the host stage in the sandbox. So if you have a brand new website, it will likely be very fresh, and it will go into a sandbox until it is ready to rank. And this is done to prevent spam. It's cool that it is finally mentioned in here. All right. So my most important takeaway, and the way I'm kind of tweaking my SEO, is I know that Google is measuring how humans react to content, and this confirms it. So whenever I'm creating content, I try to make it as captivating as possible for humans. So the first thing I do, I'm going to share my tips here. First thing I do is I want the reader to feel as if they're in the right place as quickly as possible. So when you open the page, the first thing you see, I want them to just feel, okay, I'm probably at the right place. This is what I'm looking for. This is the information I want. So usually I do this with imagery. I'll do this with the titles. I'll just do this with just giving them kind of the content as quickly as possible. Sometimes if they're looking for statistics or something, I'll try to have like a table that kind of cuts off a bit. Just want them to make them feel like they're at the right place. The next thing to keep people, from my experience, is you want to make sure that you're seen as a trusted authority on the subject. So why, either you're mentioning it in the headline, or the intro paragraph. Maybe you have a blurb about yourself. You could have, trusted or reviewed by a doctor or whatever, a peer-reviewed article, or last updated is going to be recent. There's a whole bunch of things that goes into making sure that you're seen as trusted information on that thing. And finally, my last little trick is I try to include charts, tables, and other imagery to capture my reader's attention. Usually I'll try to put it right at the fold, so they kind of have to scroll down a bit to be able to see the content. I'll have, whatever they're looking for. It could be an infographic, it could be a table, it could be a graph, it could be a chart. That really grabs people's attention. So these are my major tricks to increasing user retention without really changing the rest of your content. All right, now let's move on. There's a whole bunch of stuff on spam and content. One is going to be gibberish score. Now, gibberish score is likely there to address the lorem ipsum testing that we've been doing. I noticed at one point it wasn't working as well as it was before. Now, I still have a page that is ranking with entities and zeros. So if you've seen one of my case studies in the past, it is literally zeros, and I have put in related entities in the past. It is still ranking. So this is going to probably have an impact, but it won't have the biggest impact in the world. Maybe that page that I put together has a score of like maybe 1 or 2, but it isn't enough compared to all the other, ranking factors. All right, next, freshness of the article. So freshness, I think, is really cool because it is not only measured on a page level, but also the entire site level. So if your website is never updated, then you could maybe have a lower freshness score rather than just the page. So you want the pages to be updated, but also you want the website to be updated. Next, this was really, really cool. And we kind of suspected this in some way, but never to this extent, is that Google measures simulated traffic from the homepage. So that is to figure out which pages are most likely to be clicked on and therefore which pages are the most important ones. So the most important pages, the pages you want to rank for the most, should be linked from the homepage, and then that will increase the simulated traffic from the homepage, and then in turn Google will give it a higher score in terms of the higher on-site prominence. So all that to say, make all your money pages, most important pages, linked from the homepage. You're gonna rank better. So, so contrary to what Google's been saying in the past, fresher content is usually better, and this appears to apply to more than just a single article. It takes overall freshness of the website. A full site update might help with this. And I think that when people are doing site renovations, that are really updating their entire website, trying to recover, they're probably triggering this, and it's probably helping them recover even further. And then, as I just mentioned, the closer to the homepage, the higher it will rank. So let's move on with more spam and content. So there's a lot of this, but we're almost done. So here they're talking about commercial score. So how commercial is a page? Is it this page selling something, or it is completely just information? That is going to be an important thing that they measure. Next, spam word score, which is likely taken from the spam list that I was talking about, because this literally says the spam word score. So how many words that are spam did they find on the page? And then Firefly signals. This has been overlooked, I believe, by the community. This might be extremely important because they're talking about how frequently you post and how many people click on those articles that you just posted. So we're going to dive into this a bit more. It is in my opinion, a very, very important one. Finally, we have host NSR. So host normalized site rank, which likely means that this is probably the big recent core updates that we were talking about, where they have a normalized site rank, where if your content is not hosted on a website that has a high normalized site rank, it will not perform as well. And then spam brain domain site chunk data, which is a long thing. Essentially, they're using AI to analyze the spamminess of a domain. So I don't know exactly how they're doing this, but likely by analyzing multiple documents on the website and measuring it with the spam AI checker. So let's say your website is hosting a whole bunch of spam, then your entire domain could be penalized and not ranked because of it. All right. So as I was mentioning, host normalized rank is, in my opinion, the most important driver of traffic after a March core update. So I believe that this is an evaluation of your website and how you compare to other industry websites. So if your website is not getting good engagement, not getting enough Chrome visitors or views and interactions with your website, this is likely going to affect your rankings, and Google will not want to show your website in the search results. So in order to rank well, I'm going to personally focus on driving significant quantities of engaged, sticky traffic from users using Chrome to drive up my views and engagement. So I'm going to be posting my content on a whole bunch of different social platforms that go to my website to visit a resource, and that should increase my host normalized site rank. And I suspect that this is going to help the entire website to rank. So I also believe that this might be a ratio of how many pages you have on your site. So let's say you have 2 pages on your website and you're getting 100 Chrome views per day, and you have 2 pages. Google's probably going to say, okay, this is really good because the ratio of pages to Chrome views and engagements is really high. However, if you have a website that you scale out and you put like 1,000 pages on your website, but most of those pages aren't getting any Chrome views, that might make it more difficult for you to get your your normalized site rank up, because it might be a function of how big your website is to the Chrome visitors. I don't know. This is all speculation right here. The only thing that we do know is that there is some sort of ranking for websites, and it plays a major role in how Google will rank content. All right. Now, if you've been affected by one of the Google updates, I believe that you want to focus on your normalized site rank, and you're going to be faring better than your competitors if you want. So NSR is mentioned all over the documentation. So I've pulled out a few places where they're specifically talking about it, but there's a whole bunch of tangential variables that include it. So super, super important. All right. Now let's talk about that Firefly signal that I also mentioned was super important. And this, once again, is going to be pertaining to user signals. So Google really, really, really cares about the users. Let's put it that way. So this entire thing is all towards measuring the interaction of new content being published on a website. So whenever Google sees that you've posted 5 articles on the throughout the month, let's just say, Google will artificially boost the content for a select few users and to see how they interact with it. And then they're going to measure the interaction and calculate the score for the website. So if maybe it could go into Google Discover, and sometimes you've likely experienced this, where sometimes you'll post a piece of content and it'll rank for maybe an hour, right? Until someone clicks on it. And then once they click on it, then they have their user, or they've tested it, and then it'll go away. Most of the time, we actually don't even see it because it's only shown to maybe 1 user, or maybe it's only shown to 2 users. And we don't actually see it or capture it even with rank trackers because it's not shown to everyone. So this is them just testing really quickly. Okay, they posted this new content. Let's just show it to maybe 1 person. Maybe just show it to 2 people. And then they see how users interact with it. And if people interact positively with it, they'll show it to more people, and this score goes up. And if you post 5 new pieces of content and no one cares about it, then this score will be very low. And this will also help Google know if this is an active website or a website that's been kind of abandoned and you're just not posting any new content on it. So this has huge implication because it appears first that Google is rewarding active websites. So if you're posting new things from time to time, Google is going to reward that website a lot more than a website that hasn't been updated or anything's been posted on it for about 12 months. Now, one of the things that this tells me as well is that they're measuring how many documents have been posting and their reaction to it. So it's most likely much better to post 1 really good piece of content per month rather than 2 average pieces of content per month. It's also, let's say you post 1 really good piece of content and you post 1 average piece of content. That average piece of content or that bad piece of content is probably going to drop this score, this Firefly score. So if I only have time to post 1 really good piece of content per month, that's what I'm going to be sticking with. I'm going to be cognizant that I want to keep on posting content throughout the year. Maybe, 12 pieces of content throughout a year, I think is reasonable, but I want those 12 pieces to be really good so that this whole Firefly score goes up through the roof, and then my website is shown to a lot more people. So this is kind of a new thing where before I didn't really realize how Google was checking if a site is active or not, but this is probably it. And I didn't realize that this score could impact the whole website, right? How important this could potentially be. So the keto score. So Google, this has been a kind of a question mark for a lot of people. And what I believe it is Google estimates the AI effort, the effort that went into creating a page. So this is going to be the first thing here, which is really, really cool. Now, we didn't know that Google measured or estimated the effort that went into creating something, and we could speculate how they're doing this. The rest is likely related to the power of the page and accounts for new pages with predicted power. So whenever Google has a page, they always need to calculate the content score and also the link score. But the link score takes time. So Google doesn't have time to, it can't calculate links as quickly as content, because content, you just find the page, okay, you just calculate it right there. So it needs to make predictions about the power of that domain on that web page at that specific node in the website. So this whole thing is most likely related to page rank predictions before they calculate the official link score. So how many links, incoming links does the domain have? How many outgoing links are on the page? How, like, all these factors that go in to predicting the link score, or the score, before it is actually verified and kind of finalized by calculating the actual link. So this is, I believe, that part. All right. So this will also, as I mentioned, the effort part led to me brainstorming and saying, oh, wow, crazy. They're measuring effort and they're using some sort of AI to measure effort. So how are they doing this? Well, they're likely using page statistics as a baseline. So for instance, the word count, how many images, how many links, and so forth. So if you have a document that is like 5,000 words, there's 50 images on it, and there's a whole bunch of referenced outgoing links and so forth, it's probably higher effort than like a 200 page or 200 word page. So I don't think that word count per se is going to be a ranking factor. It's not what I'm saying. However, having a higher word count might mean that more effort went into the page. The next thing that is going to be really interesting is if they're using AI, we could also assume that it's reading the content on some level, right? So that usually is going to play a role into and the reason that why Google would use an AI to measure effort. Therefore, a little trick that should be fooling the AI is including a mention of effort in an introductory paragraph. So if we mention, and we haven't tested this yet. However, because we know Google is testing for effort or using an AI to measure effort, if in the introduction paragraph you say, hey, I put a lot of effort into creating this content for you, the AI should be able to pick that up, and therefore should return that, hey, yeah, no, this person did put a lot of effort into creating this document. They say it right at the start. So I think that this might be a little loophole, a little trick, a little hack in order to get a high effort score, is just to say you put a lot of effort into creating the content. So I'll leave that for you to kind of play around with. All right, next we have UGC score, user-generated content score, to measures the quality of the user-generated content. So if you have a thread, a forum post, or like Reddit comments and all that, and it ranks it, it needs to evaluate how much effort or how much, the score of that user-generated content. And of course, title match score measures the relevance of the title to the query. But you might be able to go too far with if the titles are always too high of a score. So for instance, title match score, a signal that measures how well the titles are matching user queries. I think that this might be a good thing. You want your titles to match the queries, but it is possible, and I'm not saying they're doing this, but it is possible that if you go too far, if all your titles are too high, Google might actually start using the reverse and saying, no, you're too optimized, right? So your website is too optimized for this. And we don't know which way and how this is implemented into the algorithm. We only know that there is a title match score. So it is a possibility that if all your titles match too closely, they might tank the website a bit. Or this might also be just them saying, oh, well, this is very relevant because the title matches the query. So it could go either way. All right. Next, small personal site. Now, this is probably what people made the biggest boost, like noise about. And I thought it was funny because this is something I've known about for a very long time. And it is a promotion. This is there to help people, and people got really upset about this. because, oh, you're saying I have a small personal site. No, Google put this specifically to help people that didn't know SEO, that have a small little website, like a mom and pop, or let's say a personal brand. Let's say I put my name.com. I put ericlanchers.com and there's 2 pages on it. If this didn't exist, Google would never show the website. It literally says here, this is a promotion. So this is a boost. This is a promotion for websites that are really, really small, promoting personal blogs. And I've used this in the past to great effect. And let me explain a bit more. You could actually use this when you're starting out a website. So actually, we actually experienced this with OnPage when we started OnPage.ai. So sites that are very, very small. So let's say you have 2 or 3 pages, or I don't know exactly the number, but let's say sites with 5 pages or less, they tend to rank well for abnormally well for huge terms. And I noticed that when you start scaling past a certain point, you actually lose this boost and you might drop in rankings. So if you have a really, really a small site, like say 2-3 pages, and it's ranking really well, if you start adding more pages to it, you might lose that boost, and then you will lose a bit of ranking. So my thing right now is, if I'm starting a small site, I will put in some really important content, and then I'll keep it really, really small until I'm ready to scale. Because eventually you have to go for it, right? Like, you can't stay small forever, but know that when you are scaling, you're going to get a little boost, a dip, and then you're going to go back up when you kind of make up for it. So this is going to be the small personal site. There is there to help people. It is not there to detract. Otherwise, like lawyers or like the small little people like plumbers or whatever would maybe not have their site found because they don't have this boost. So this is there for the benefit of smaller people, of smaller websites, not people, but smaller websites. All right, cool. Now, cluster uplift. This is going to be more another boost for topically aligned content within the cluster. And they also mention about site autopilot score. This is probably a measure of how automated a site is. So in the past, Google was dealing with RSS spam. Essentially, you would just pull, the entire website was automated from RSS feeds. So this might still be there measuring that, or they might have evolved, right? So we don't know how this is being used. Maybe if they just see a whole bunch of content that's just been automated, they're like, okay, well, this is you're gonna get a big site autopilot score. We just don't know. Next, and this is kind of a confirmation that we've seen, is Chrome in total. Site level Chrome views. It is measuring how many Chrome viewers have viewed your site. And this is most likely a ranking signal. So if you have a whole bunch of Chrome views, let's say you could go viral on Reddit and you get 100,000 Chrome views, this will likely help your site rank, not only in the short term, but in the long term, because your website will have higher Chrome views than another website. So very interesting. Then we move into Chard. So Chard is going to be some sort of user interaction. So that I know for sure. And I'm speculating, and I believe it actually might stand for Chrome average duration. That's my best guess. And I believe that they're measuring how long people stay on the site using Chrome. And this seems to be a very important signal because it is mentioned in many places, even other places we haven't covered yet or haven't covered. The Chrome average duration is probably how long people stay on a page. So as I said before, one of the most important things you could do to increase the site's ranking is to get real traffic, specifically Chrome traffic. And we want them to visit all the pages on our website. So Google not only measures the individual views, but also the quality of the views. And this seems to be that thing that we've all suspected for a long time. How long do Chrome users stay on the website? That seems to be a role and something that they're calculating. Next, we have this switch right here, which is the normalized site rank override, which should only be used in emergencies to have any effect. This is a big thing that is almost hidden. So this is something that Google would not want people to know about, most likely, but it means that they could likely override the normalized site rank, which I explained was critically important to rankings. And what this means is that Google probably has a secret switch. So this is probably a cleverly disguised variable that they could manipulate to increase and override the normalized site rank, which is one of the primary drivers of traffic, which means they have the power to increase or decrease a website. So I believe that they could change this value as much as they want. But as they write, they say, okay, this is only for emergencies. But if let's say they were to get something wrong, like with a website and the website tanks, but it shouldn't be tanking, they could come in here and adjust this variable, and it should either penalize a website. So let's say they really are going after influencers and they say, okay, well, we know that this website's shady. They could go in and dip the normalized site rank and essentially tank a website, or they could promote a website. So we'll reverse the penalty with this metric. So this is probably one of these things that Google doesn't want people to know about or to look into too much. So this is going to be what I think is the secret Google switch. All right, moving on. We have content scores. So here, obviously, they have an article score. So Google has long said, hey, we don't have a specific score. They do. And site to vec embedding is related to the topical alignment of the site. So we've talked about topical alignment a lot. This is literally it when they're measuring content score. How is it aligned? Is it with the rest of the entities and content on the website? Next, they have things like is election authority. This I honestly don't care too much. They could likely flag websites that are authorities in election, like the government website, for instance. Maybe the whitehouse.gov is flagged or something. So that would make sense to fight like misinformation. Next, they have clutter score. So clutter score is a score based on layout clutter. So if when you're creating content, you want to make sure that on the mobile side of things, you don't have too many intrusive pop-up or ads, because this will tank your website or tank your articles. So ranking with ads. This is going to be especially important that if you're trying to rank on mobile devices, there's literally a thing that measures how much clutter there is on the page. This applies to the desktop as well, but it's not as prominent as a mobile, I believe. And clean layouts will always, or usually not always, but you will usually rank better. All right, now we keep on moving on. We're almost done with the content. We're talking about entities. Now, we've been talking about topical alignment and topical relevance, and that all comes back down to entities. Entities is how Google measures what the content is about, and entities is mentioned all over the place as it plays a central role in determining what ranks and what doesn't. So when you want to rank, you want to include a whole bunch of related entities on the content, and then Google will understand what it's about. What they say is multiple entities can be identified on a document or a query. Yeah, we know that. So they care about the entities mentioned in a document, including the frequency and the importance of the entities. So what's actually really cool as well is they're calculating implicit entities in addition to the entities that you mentioned. So if you are mentioning one thing, like let's say you're mentioning the word gym, here you go. So you're mentioning the word gym, it knows it's related to sports. So they actually have a place here where they're talking about these are the implicit entities that they've calculated. So this is how web pages could rank without even having the word on the page. It's via the implicit entities. And finally, they have a confidence score of, yes, how confident are they that this focuses on the entity? All right, cool. Let's move on. One of the things I thought that was interesting is they have a way of listing all the entities in reverse order from most important to least important. And I was like, oh, that's what we do. So they could pull out, and if you're evaluating this, they could pull out all the most related entities for a term, for something they're looking for, all the way down to the least important. And latent entities are also really cool, where they're listing all the related words to an entity. So these are two things. So these are related words and the exact words. So this is literally what we do, and that's why I thought it was funny. These are going to be the most related entities in reverse order, and these are related entities. These are the things that we put on our page in order to rank better. So, and what's really cool as well is that we actually use Google's own AI to get these. So Google has their AI and their NLP AI available. You just have to pay. And we use that within our tool to be able to do all these calculations and pull out all the most relevant entities. So this is really cool to see it in action. It's kind of, you can see it puts a smile on my face. This is what we've been doing. And they're kind of doing the same thing, but kind of like internally here. They're like listing the related entities and the entities for the term. Cool. Entity scoring. This is going to be the originality. So this is where it gets interesting as well, where here the IDF and the original term, this is going to be not duplicate content. This is going to be how original is your content compared to other people, what other people are mentioning. Are you mentioning anything original? So essentially what it looks for is it looks for original entities within your content. And if you're mentioning things that other people aren't mentioning, then you get a higher original score and you're likely to rank higher. Salience is going to be the importance of a topic. So what's the most important thing to discuss in your content? And what you the way you use this, and this is what we've been doing as well for a long time, is going to be we use entities that our competitors are not using. So on the top, so we actually have two sections. We have the recommended words, which are the entities competitors are using, but we have the highly related words that the entities that your competitors might not be using. So essentially what I've been professing and just doing myself and encouraging others people to do is, if you want to rank number one on Google, you don't want to copy the number one spot. You want to go above and beyond. So you want to do everything that they're doing and then some. You want to use, the same entities they're using, but then add even more relevant entities on top of what they're doing. Therefore, you get a higher original score and you get a higher ranking score and a higher relevance score. And then that's how you kind of surpass the competition and you become number one. So I'm not a believer in just copying. I'm a believer in seeing what other people are doing and then doing it better. So that's essentially what I want for everyone. Just create better content than the number one spot. Go above and beyond. And Google has a metric, it appears, that rewards original content. So going above and beyond using original entities that are still relevant. Of course, you want those entities to be relevant. Let me make clear, but just going above and beyond. So I thought that was really cool. It's kind of a confirmation of what we've been doing, and it just encourages me to go even further with it. So next, we actually have something else that's kind of interesting, and it's going to be in the categories. So Google is categorizing and classifying content on the web, and they've published a long time ago a whole list of categories right here. So they have, I think it's 218 categories, and there's probably more that have been added. And what I thought was interesting in this is we still allow use cases to exist, no forced migration. What this means is that there are systems that currently use this. So inside the Google algorithm, somewhere they are currently using this categorization and they have not decided to migrate it, and they're just going to keep on using it. However, they're saying for new usage, they actually have something that replaces this, and that's better. So this same type of idea, but better, right? So that to me was like, okay, cool. So they used to use this and they're still using it, but now they actually have something better. And this is kind of lines up with what we've been doing when we're trying to create topically aligned websites. We've been using Google categories to see how our site stacks up. So Google has made all their categories available, and also Google has listed all the Google's made all the categories available, that they've posted it, and they also give access to their categorization engine. And we've actually built a tool that allows you to go and check content and see where in which category, which Google category it lands in. So this is a way to see, hey, is my content aligned? So we can see all the Google categories. There's going to be people, society, family, and relationships. By putting all the links from a website, putting them all here, you see how all the categories lines up. So this is something I believe that Google was using in the past. And now, as they said, they've probably moved on to something new. So there's probably a new sort of categorization that is maybe more granular, and you can maybe adapt to more content online. However, this is the best we have at the moment. So that's what I'm personally using. So, they probably have something new, but we know they do care about categories, and this is what they were using, and they might still be using it. So this is how I'm doing and evaluating websites to make sure that they are as aligned as possible. All right. So, anyways, I thought that was really cool because Google, once again, cares about topicality. It's everywhere, where if you have a high topicality score, you're likely to rank better. This is some sort of relevant score for your website and for the pages. Now, we have click signals, and click signals, well, we've mentioned before over and over again, this is going to be the craps. So when you saw craps before, this was Chrome related stuff, and this is going to be the click signals where they're measuring absolute clicks, bad clicks, good clicks, long clicks, unicorn clicks, and so forth. And this is really something we've known for a long time. I've actually made tons of videos on click-through rate manipulation, what you should watch out for, because Google this has been in patents for a very long time, and since 2010 or 11, we've been working on this. So they measure click-through rate, impressions per click for content. They also measure bad clicks, which is something which is likely people returning to search. So if you have someone that clicks on your content and then goes back to Google to search for the exact same thing, that's likely a bad click, and you want to avoid those at all costs. And unicorn clicks, which is likely clicks from abnormal users. So let me explain what this is. Google measures the interaction of users with the search engine results, and good catchy titles and good meta descriptions will help increase the clicks to a page. So this is going to be the main thing in this signal, where we want to avoid bad clicks at all costs, which means that someone goes back to Google after they search for a term. So they go from Google to page and then they go back. That's really, really, really bad. It'll tank your page. However, what's really, really interesting is they are mentioning unicorn clicks. And I kind of knew this from the past, but it is nice to see it confirmed. And unicorn clicks is going to be clicks from a single user that performs an abnormal quantity of searches and clicks per day. In the patents, and for a long time, I was reading this, and essentially Google has a ton of ways of detecting click-through rate manipulation, and one of those is going to be, I didn't have a name for it, but it's going to be called unicorn clicks, and from a unicorn user. So if you have a user here, and they detect that this one user from this IP or whatnot, or this logged in user performs 1,000 searches in a day, that becomes a unicorn user. And then this unicorn user ends up being flagged as someone who's manipulating clicks, and they just don't count it. Now, what is even more interesting, if we dive into the actual thing, is they might be able to see how many you get. How many, like, if you have one unicorn user that just clicks on your content, that's probably doesn't matter. But what if you have 100 unicorn users, and just as 100 unicorn users clicking on your stuff, then Google probably knows that, hey, this person is this is not random. This person is trying to manipulate clicks. So if you're going to be using any sort of click-through rate or manipulation, or you're trying to do anything, you're going to want to do it from non-unicorn users. So users that are not searching hundreds of places per day. And so it makes it a lot more complicated to do, essentially. So this is going to be the other part. This is where they store the click data, essentially the accumulation of click data. So all the stuff we looked at before was like in the moment, and now this is going to be the accumulated click data for a website. So maybe over a 30-day period, maybe over a 28-day period. So accumulated data coverage for URL using a constant half-life time. Next tag 28, maybe it's 28 days, who knows? But what they are measuring is how much clicks and how people are reacting to your website over a 30-day period, probably, or maybe a 28-day period. And some of these surprises was going to be image click counts. Now, I actually think that this is going to be image results in just normal search results. I don't necessarily think that this is from image search, but who knows? And also dwell counts. So this was actually really interesting. This is kind of nice of Google, that if you get the search snippet at the top, and then people dwell over, they kind of reading your search result, that means you get a good result. You get a benefit from that. So if people just hover over the search snippet at the top, you actually get benefit if that is your website. So that was nice. Next, we actually have Google measuring the last time a document received a click. So this is really cool. Last dwell date in days, last good click in days. This is usually it's probably going to be from Chrome, and this might imply that Google, if you want to refresh your website, you might want to get clicks to some pages that haven't been clicked in a while. So who knows? But this is really interesting to know that Google measures when the last time a click was sent to a page. This might also be a way for Google to test old content that they haven't tested in a while. And the other interesting thing is they were mentioning local universal dwells. So local universal dwells might be an indication that they're measuring data beyond Chrome, and this might be from other sources. So maybe just Android. So we don't know at this point, but that was dwells from local universal means that they have a universal source of dwells. So universal source of things, which I actually think is going to be Android. All right, cool. So one thing that might be interesting to test, because we know that Google measures clicks site wide, would be to send, I'd like to see how Google reacts if we just sent a whole bunch of clicks to even older content on a website. So let's say, instead of, if you have content that hasn't been clicked in on a while, you might want to send clicks to it. And this might also support the idea of pruning and removing old content that gets no clicks and no visits. So those pages are likely to not have any Chrome views, and therefore we might want to think about trimming. So this is I'm not saying you should do it, but this might be a point in a direction that having really old content that's with a whole bunch of content that's not getting clicks, this might be it might warrant some addressing. All right, now we have nav boost clicks. So this is essentially where they're taking all the user data and they're converting it into a boost. So as I mentioned, CRAPS likely stands for Chrome Requested Accumulated Page Statistics. And if your users visit and like your site, you're going to do well on Google. So Google has this entire section here is all about user data and probably Chrome accumulated user data and statistics about your webpage. So there's going to be a boost whenever people are clicking on stuff, and people are essentially, they're saying the word voting for it by clicking on it. So, more confirmation. And Nav Boost, if I hadn't explained it yet, is essentially their way of increasing increasing the rank of pages. It's essentially a boost, and then they measure how long or how users interact with the content. So whenever you have pages bouncing around when you've just published a page, this is them implementing Nav Boost, removing it, implementing Nav Boost, and then counting the interactions of users with that content. So when we're talking about Firefly, this is going to be kind of the module that is being used in Firefly. So here, query count. This was also really interesting because I think that this might be a ranking factor on its own, how many times a document appears in search queries. So for instance, if you have a page that covers a huge page that covers a whole bunch of queries, that page might have a higher query count. So if you put in an ultimate guide to VR headsets or so, that page might not rank for one specific term, but it might rank for hundreds and hundreds of terms, and therefore the query count would be higher, and therefore you know that this is a good resource, this is a page that we want to show. The amount of queries that a page ranks for might be a ranking factor. So now, one of the things that we actually that we noticed as well is that receiving mobile visitors produces an additional boost for the entire website, and is likely applied in that region. So one of the things that I discovered is if you're getting a whole bunch of mobile visitors from Canada, then you're likely to receive a boost on google.ca searches. So if, for instance, you're running a localized TV advertisement or a TV campaign, and you're running that campaign in Canada, then that should translate to higher rankings in Canada because of this mechanism. So that's something else that I thought was interesting. Depending on where you're getting your mobile clicks, that might impact where you're getting that boost. Next, we have mobile penalties. So in order to rank, one of the things that is critically important is that your page needs to be mobile optimized. It needs to be mobile ready. In fact, Google just published and just announced that they're going to de-index pages that are not mobile friendly. So they're going as far, right now they're not ranking them, and they're going to go and just de-index them. So if you want to rank online, your pages need to show up on mobile, and they need to be smartphone optimized in order to stand a chance of ranking. Now, finally, we have the snippet score. And the snippet score, which is essentially the number 0 result on Google or number 1 result on Google, here is going to be how they rank it. And I could just share you the secret. One is you want to have relevant title or subheadline. So whatever your search snippet passage is going to be, you want to make sure that the title or subheadline is really relevant. Next, you want to make sure that you have an exact passage that answers the query. So whatever the query is, you want to be answering it right below. And that passage needs to be a high embed score. And essentially what that means is you want to use a whole bunch of exact and related entities within that passage. That is how you're going to increase your embed score. Embed score essentially the calculation of the entities that are there. So the way to increase it and the way to rank is going to be you're going to have your relevant title. So you have your title, it could be here or it could be right above. Then I like to have an image. That's going to be my own personal thing. I like to have an image that is called whatever I'm trying to rank .jpeg. Then I'm going to use a very, very high concentration of entities related to that question, to that passage, to that query that is going to increase my entity score. And finally, I'll try to have the exact query in there or something very similar. So let me show you an actual example. What are the best dog treats for training? Here, we're going to have kind of the queries in the headlines. It's going to have a high headline score, the ultimate list of high value treats for training and counter conditioning. And then these are all entities. So these are all the relevant entities that are going to be listed. And then Google sees this and says, oh, okay, well, I guess this will be the search snippet. So that is the trick. And if you want to rank for a search snippet. And the other thing, of course, to rank for the search snippet is you need to be ranking on page 1, and it likely is using the page rank cutoff. So you want to have enough power going to that page in order to be able to rank. And I believe it could even be predicted power. So when we're talking about the keto, so it could also be predicted power, because I've seen the search snippet ranks quite quickly. So either predicted power or power, whole bunch of related entities, and a relevant headline or subheadline will get you ranking for a search snippet. All right. So now retrieving documents. Once again, this is going to be confirmations of things that we kind of knew. So last page updated, query boost. So queries that received the nav boost. So if you have good user interaction, it's going to get a boost. And of course, the new page rank nearest seed goes into retrieving documents. Google also lists all the terms that the page should rank for within its category. So whenever it's retrieving stuff, it has an idea of the document, and your document can rank for a list of queries, and that is stored in Google's documentation. So essentially, when we're going over all of this, when Google retrieves documents, they look at freshness, they look at the nav boost. So these are the boosts from the other signals like the clicks and all that. They also look at page rank nearest seed, so the direct power of going to the page. They look at the classification of the document and also the classification of the website. So we've talked about this in the past. And they look at the most important end terms and entities of the document when they're trying to rank stuff. So it appears as if most of the quality signals end up going into nav boost, and this is essentially the decider of like, hey, what are we going to boost? What are we going to lower? So this should be no secret as we've been going over, but this is kind of like a confirmation of everything that we've been looking at. So now I'm going to be sharing my step-by-step ranking strategy that is based on all the stuff I've been doing and all the new improvements. This is going to be literally how I would approach ranking from A to B, or from A to Z. And yeah, let's dive right into it. All right, so here's what I would do if I was starting a new site. If I'm starting a new site, I'm purposely keeping it small in order to take advantage of this small personal site ranking boost. As we mentioned, small personal site ranking boost is something that just helps you compete against larger websites, even if you have a very small website and you're just starting out. So I'm purposely going to keep it small, and I'm going to be creating one big article. One article I really want to rank for. It's going to be a really good article, a really good piece of content to start attracting people into my website. Now, I will take into account the host stage. So if it's a brand new website, we know we're going to be in a sandbox because we saw the mention in host stage. So I have to be patient even if I don't see instant rankings. I know that if I have really good content, I'm driving visitors to my article, and I'm keeping the site really small at first. That is going to be usually all I need to get that initial rankings. So once I have one flagship article that's immensely valuable, I'm going to start sharing it across social media to get natural visitors to my site. So this is going to start increasing my Chrome views. It's going to improve my overall site score, and it's going to improve my click metrics and visit duration. So this is essentially my tactic for starting off a website. Have one really big article, have it trending, having a whole bunch of Chrome views. And as we mentioned before, this should shoot up and improve my site rank quite a bit, because compared to other websites, I only have one article, and this article is like it's banging, right? It's getting all the attention in the world. So you're scoring really, really high. Essentially, this is just setting me up for the future when I want to break out of the small personal site size, essentially. So then once I'm confident my website is set, I'm getting visitors already. I have Chrome views. I already start probably getting links back to this article. I'm going to start and break out of the small size, and I'm going to start adding related, topically aligned content. Now, it's very, very important in phase 2, I guess, to add topically aligned content, because we've seen in so many places that they care about topicality. How many, what is the topical embedding of the website? What is the score? How far does this article diverge from your main topic? So if you want a chance of ranking in phase 2, you're going to want to have topically aligned content. I'm going to keep these in almost the same categories, and I'm going to be creating content that doesn't overlap. I don't want to create the same content over and over again, but I want it to be complementary and aligned. So that's going to be taking advantage of the second boost, which is topical authority. So this will allow my Medium website to be able to compete with even larger websites because I'm getting this topical authority boost. Now, I will be creating a topical authority map of the terms I want to cover and expand into. And one of the ways I could do this is just to look at the related entities to my main term. So if I have a main term, there's going to be a whole bunch of related entities. I could just branch out and say, okay, well, SEO checklist is related to local SEO. So I'm going to write about local SEO and so forth. And you could kind of branch out like that. The next is you could look up the central entity on Wikipedia, and then you're going to get a whole bunch of related content. So search engine optimization, pay-per-click, cost per impression, search analytics, referral marketing, social media marketing. These are going to be related to search engine optimization. So you could kind of branch out using Wikipedia and to know what kind of related content you could write about. Next is also going to be looking at the knowledge graph. So whenever you do a Google search for your main entity, sometimes there's a knowledge graph, and there's going to be information on the Google results for that as well. So, okay, cool. Now let's move on. When I'm writing, this is going to be the content that I'm creating. We talked about topical authority content, and the way we essentially optimize our content is going to be to use as many related entities as possible. I try to make it really clear what my main focus entity is on the page by using that entity the most often. So let's say I'm talking about content. I'm going to use the word content probably more than anything else. I'm going to make sure it's very, very clear that I'm using the word content. And also Google will know that this is the main focus entity by the other ones that I'm talking about. So if I'm talking about dogs, I'm going to have all these other sub-related entities that show that this is the main focus entity. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm also going to be including entities that my competitors are not using, because this will help my content be seen as original content and help me go above and beyond the competition. So we don't want to just copy the same entities that our competitors are doing. We want to use those. And in addition, we want to use some that they might not be using that are relevant. So this is going to be how I'm going to be optimizing and creating my topically aligned content. So in terms of distribution and the way I'm going about it when I'm creating this topically aligned content is I'm essentially going to create an article. They're going to be interlinked, because internal links, as we saw at the beginning, are very, very important. They're essentially backlinks that you create yourself with relevant anchor text that is varied. But then I'm also going to be sharing it across social media. So whenever I have an article, I want to get a whole bunch of Chrome views. So if I create an article or content and I can't get any Chrome views, it's probably not good enough, and it's probably going to struggle to rank. So I want to make sure I could get some Chrome views to the article. And on a random side note, I'm probably going to start using Chrome whenever I'm working on my website now, just to get at least one, right? At least a bare bone minimum. So next, news links. So news, there seems to be a flag, and Google seems to notice when there's links from news. So I will be putting out press releases for my website. However, I've also noticed that press releases could create a whole bunch of anchor text that I might not want directly pointing to an article. So what I'm likely going to be doing is creating specific news section of for my website and pointing my press releases to there. So let's say I have an article and I'm trying to rank for this article for this term. I probably don't want to have a whole bunch of news links pointing to it directly. I probably want the news links pointing to a related news press release here, and then I'll internal link it with internal anchor text, and that is going to help me. So that is going to be a slight distinction where I'm probably going to have a press room like these big websites have, and that's where I'm going to point my press releases to whenever I'm putting out press releases. So that's going to help me be found in the news. And yeah, that's going to be my approach. As I mentioned, Google puts a big emphasis on anchor text. So whenever I'm creating content, I'm going to make sure I get a whole bunch of relevant anchor text from my other articles. And I'm going to try to mix it up while keeping it relatively close to what I want, because Google calculates the anchor text fragments and puts them together. So this is going to be why I'm going to be using exact match, but also fragments of it to ultimately get myself the best links for my page. All right. And then finally, external links. When I'm going and I need to get those external links, I'm going to go on campaigns. I'm going to do this work to get external links. I'm going to try to get it from the highest, closest to the seeds as possible. So I'm going to try to get it from major websites instead of getting links from very, very distant and small websites. So if it's ranking for everything, it's probably very close to a seed website. And some of the seed websites that I suspect, I kind of listed the edu.gov, the military websites. Those are probably going to be seed websites. And those are probably linking to major organizations. And I'm going to try to just get big links pointing to my website. The other thing is, whenever you get a big link pointing to your website, it also validates the other links that are pointing to if they're using the same anchor text. So that was another benefit of getting large links. So that's why my approach to link building is going to move away from smaller websites and really focus highly on getting large authority links. Let's put it that way. And finally, these are going to be additional considerations with all the spam flags and spam stuff that we found in the leak. Is I'm going to be really wary of getting links from sites that might have an expired tag. So if I'm getting links and I know that this used to be an expired domain, the person that just revived it and then started putting content down on there, the link might still be okay once in a while. But if you get too many, you might be getting too many links from sites with an expired tag. So I'm going to be very careful with this. The next thing is I'm going to be very careful with anchor text and link velocity. So a lot of stuff in the spam, we've been doing this for a long time. A lot of flags and variables in the spam section dealt with link velocity. How many links were you getting in a certain amount of time? And it were the anchor text repeating over and over and over again. And the next thing was homepage links are very, very scary because there's a whole bunch of spam stuff for homepage links. So I'm going to try to avoid getting too many homepage links and avoid getting site-wide links as well. The next thing is I'm going to avoid using click services because most click services are users that are going to be flagged as unicorns. So if you're running a click service and you're servicing 1,000 clients, then whatever you're servicing them with are likely doing a whole bunch of searches. They're likely going to be seen as unicorn clicks. So if I do send fake traffic and I do create Chrome things, it is probably going to be a unique, very low volume source, maybe a homemade set of phones, or I'm going to do something very on a small scale where it should not be flagged as unicorns. These users will not be searching thousands of sites per day or even hundreds of sites per day. They might be only searching like 5 sites a day, in which case that should be below the radar and not be flagged as a unicorn. So in terms of publishing rate as well, the next thing is I'm going to try to publish one high piece of content per month in order to keep the boost active on my website. So this lets Google people see how people interact with my website. As we saw in the whole Firefly thing, Google's going to be testing to see, hey, how does this one piece of content that they publish perform? And I'm going to really focus on publishing quality content rather than publishing like a whole bunch of stuff that necessarily isn't very good in order to get positive interactions with my content. So all right, let's move on. Ranking for highly competitive terms. So one of the biggest realizations is that there's a lot more that goes into ranking a page than the words on that single page. So I think Google has mentioned this before, where when I'm trying to rank for a big money term, let's say I'm going for how to buy gold, or I'm going for gaming computers, or I'm going for like a big term that is worth quite a lot, I will move from just focusing on the page. Now I want to make sure that that page is optimized with a whole bunch of entities. I want to make sure it has a whole bunch of related entities. I want to make sure it has a whole bunch of internal links and external links. However, beyond that, it's also topical authority. See, that's another kind of consideration. By improving other pages on the website, that might improve the topical authority of the entire website. And therefore, that might improve the rank of that page. And also, another factor might go into improving the rank of that page is how users interact with the rest of my website. So, by, let's say, removing bad pages from my website, that might actually increase the rate, or that might increase the rankings of that highly competitive term. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into ranking a single page beyond just what's found on that single page. So that was kind of one of the things. So what, moving forward, I want to make sure that I'm doing. So congratulations on making it through this deep dive on how Google really works. I believe that if you've gone through this, you probably have a better understanding of how Google really works than 99% of other people. So you probably use this knowledge, and hopefully this will be useful so you could go out and rank, help other people rank, help people in need, and hopefully make more profit along the way. One of the reasons I do this is because, hey, I want to rank as well as possible on Google as well. And also, I integrate all my research into the onpage.ai tool, which is my tool for ranking on Google. Essentially, I take all the best practices, all the knowledge I've had, and all the testing I've done over the past decade or more, and I integrate all this stuff into the on-page tool. We try to use Google's AI as much as possible when I was showing you the categories, the entities, and all that stuff. And we try to essentially make it so that you get better, safe rankings. So if you're at all interested, no, you don't need to, but if you're at all interested, check it out on page.ai. That is personally what I use, and that's personally what I'm implementing, where I implement all my research and discoveries and how Google functions. I try to align it with the stuff that's inside there. So if this has been useful, feel free to share this video with other people. Feel free to share this knowledge so that we can all rank better as an SEO community. We can all profit and have a great day. So thank you very much. My name is Eric Lanchus, and I'll talk to you soon.